First, I would like to clarify that I am very aware that I am not an admin and cannot make any definitive rulings. Nothing from this video is admin endorsed, nor is this video necessary to understand the rules. This is not telling you whether or not something you saw wasn't fair, or that you can come to me personally and I'll dox whatever player that didn't let you monologue before batoning you. This is to help you, the player, understand escalation. If at any point you're in-game and need an escalation question answered or are concerned, please remember you can F1 an admin. With that all being said, I understand that many people have concerns about escalation and worry about making sure they do it properly in-game, so consider this my attempt to alleviate what concerns you might have. A big part of roleplay is building interesting situations for our little characters to react and do stuff in. Unfortunately for Space Station 13, you can skip a lot of the steps and blow the shit smooth off of any random person from a dark corner Metal Gear style, which doesn't facilitate much conversation. Thus, servers will often implement escalation, a rule that all players are expected to follow that sets the expectation that people should be able to contribute something to the situation, be that petty vandalism, corporate sabotage, or organ removal via chainsaw. An unfortunate problem with escalation is that the ways that it takes shape isn't often entirely clear. The ruling itself doesn't exactly set examples, and people consider different things proper escalation. How much do I have to talk? How do I ambush someone if I gotta give them a howdy-do before I shoot them? Etc. So let me do my best to alleviate some of the concern and explain as concisely as I can manage what escalation is. Now, before we get into anything, we should do what you should always do before you try to join any server, and read the rule. That being said, we're going to do that, and look at what it wants from us. So the first sentence here, immediately this should tell you a few things. There should be, in some way or another, some back and forth, a dialogue of some variety that allows people to let their characters' pipes sing and have some impact on whatever's going down. The fun part of RP is, being able to play a character, and if half the time your funny quip is going to get cut in half by the Sea Saber rampage sprinting down the hall, it makes it a little less fun to do it. So whenever you're out there being a silly rapscallion, you should afford people the ability to comment on it somehow or respond. Is your grinder teleporter packet activated machine funny? No, definitely, but not a lot of witty banter to be had if you just leave it in a hallway and let it snag up unsuspecting people. Now, what this isn't saying is never kill anyone ever and monologue before every crayon graffiti. It's just saying that you should offer people the chance to roleplay somehow. Let their character interact with yours and be sad that you dyed their hair chartreuse because it totally clashes with their outfit. Now, with that being said, remember escalation is a two-way street. If you're security and you catch an antag doing something, try to be fair and remember that antags are what make the game fun. Try to react to what they're doing with a reasonable response rather than trying to prevent them doing something. I know you know they're a vampire, but if they can give sufficient evidence they use the flash instead, indulge them, why don't you? Now again, just like an antag, this isn't saying let the antag walk all over you and fold the moment they complain about you're being unfair. But don't punish them more that is fair because you know what they are. This one is more an addendum, but still something to keep in mind. You gotta remember what things like the Syndicate or an Archfiend are here in the lovely space station of ours in this universe. These are terrorist organizations, murderous creatures, hellish demons, and what have you that come out with pretty much the single goal of fucking up the station somehow. With that being said, if you brand yourself as part of this, people have a right to go, hi, I like not having my blood sucked out of me and turned into a mindless zombie. Please go fuck yourself at your earliest convenience. Just remember that treating harshly is different from immediately smashing a fire extinguisher over their head. You can disrespect them and be more willing to not go with their plans, but you should still try to role play with them. To rephrase this in as short as I can manage, players should allow each other to role play in some capacity rather than focusing solely on gameplay. Now, unfortunately, that does still leave a lot of questions and room for interpretation. Is there an escalation quota I need to hit? What if I want to do something that escalating would spoil? How slow or fast can I escalate to murder? I made a poll a bit ago that asked a bunch of people scenarios and questions about escalation, and asked them to add their thoughts where they wanted to. I'm going to show you the cumulative results and talk about what people said for each question, as well as what concerns it addresses for escalation. None of these questions ever had a right answer or a proper interpretation of them. And you can make arguments for any decision people made, but I'm going to give my best interpretations and advice. So, sort of the big question with this one, yeah, you'll see, is does the other party need a lot of time to react for it to qualify as escalation? That's kind of the question this is asking. Now, you'll see in the example here, the way that it's phrased, it doesn't seem like the trader gives any time for the person to make a response. And now I'll admit that's a part of the question that a decent couple of people caught, was that hopefully the tag gave the security assistant here a chance to respond in some way. Now, it doesn't say, and so most people did say no, but as I say, some people did say it was fair just because, like, the fact that the tag did explain the situation to them, they did allow them to be ready for the situation, as it were. And thus they escalated to that point instead of just silently shooting him from the bush. Some of the cannot say category also brought up that if this was an isolated incident, that might come off as more stinky, as opposed to, say, if they were getting chased and they lost them, and then the trader caught them later. That would, sort of give them more of a chance to have role played before, and then it would be a continuation of that scene, so it wouldn't be it wouldn't come off as more of a surprise, more just like a continuation, an expected consequence, as it were. Saying, me personally, I agree that if they do this, they should give, they being the trader, should give the security assistant a chance to speak on it or something, even if it's just like a what or something, to give him one last chance before they get murdered. All right, question 2 here. So now, as you can see, this one's not like a kind of a questionnaire. It's more just like a concern some people have. Uh, as you'll notice, a lot of people have this concern. I'm saying if you're worried about it, good news. A lot of people are. So, sort of what you got to remember to take away from this is that sometimes you're gonna have to just trust that the other person is gonna role play with you. You can never guarantee it, and yeah, sometimes someone's gonna do something like you're gonna freaking glare them, or like they're gonna be ready with the sunglasses, and sometimes it's gonna go wrong. But you gotta, if you're not gonna give people the chance, or you're like not gonna do any bit because you're worried people are gonna get nervous, then it's not gonna be a very fun time for anyone. So a little note to the tags: make sure you still give people a chance. It's unfun to interact with, but more so to the crew, try to actually have fun. I know it feels bad to lose. You're going, ah, man, am I gonna have to die? And it's like, hey, listen, man. Sometimes you are, and like, it's, if you don't want that, then don't play on the role play stairs. And again, this isn't telling you that you should fold to anyone, or no one should be like feeling like they have to sacrifice fun for the other one. Like, go along with the bit, and when the time comes that hands got to get thrown, make sure people are kind of like, like you make sure you got your fun fill of chit chat and role play and the bit before you get there. And this is also a reminder that if someone doesn't escalate with you, you role play, yeah. You help it, because if someone keeps doing that, if a staff assistant is like shitting on people's bits, or an tag is just saying nothing and murdering you, no one's gonna know until you say something about it, right? So It's an anxiety a lot of people have, so don't get worried about that. But if you don't try, then nothing's gonna happen with it. So it's more of a reminder than a verdict of any kind. Just but All right. So question 3 here. This one's the bane of any RPing and tag's existence. Someone goes down, and before you take them out, they get out the name and location and your social security before they go down. Now that's a bit presumptuous, but the question that we're trying to answer is that within the rules and is that right? Now, it's hard to say for a decent few people. And as you could say, like it's a lot of people, even though they think that it's a bit of a dick move, it is still legal. I'm saying no one, like in both RP and in the game wise, you're not just gonna lie down and get murdered. As in, no one's expecting that. But a lot of people kind of weren't sure how to answer because they had at least a few caveats, like is it later in the round? Does the station know that there's an antag? Like if you heard on the radio before that 2 people got exsanguinated, then you might be more willing to go, oh my god, that's the vampire. I was saying, well, what I'm gonna say is, so like this example is pretty hefty because chances are that guy's gonna die, but I'm just gonna remind you that if an antag does do something, try not to do anything preemptively, like I'm just saying if you're gonna if you're worried a guy's gonna murk you, I would say, I don't know, let you say like, hey man, you're weird, I'm gonna not talk to you anymore. And then that's kind of their cue to either murder you or not. And then once they start stabbing you, then you can try to get the radio out, saying don't try to like screw over is a strong word, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Don't try to screw over an antag until you both like got your talk out. Like do your RP first, then let the fucking gameplay fly. I'm not gonna tell you that like doing something like this is wrong. Like it's honestly it's a kind of a common tactic, and antags have ways to counter this. So for the antag lovers out there, this is your reminder that you're allowed to counter this. You should be ready for this. Is what I'm saying. Even if you think it's stinky, there's ways to hit. You can hit them before like they get their radio words out, or you can get them with the hypnotize or the discharge or whatever tool you have. So yeah. Now questions 4 and 7. You might be wondering why I lumped these two together. And the reason I did that is because they both kind of touch on self-imposed rules. I was saying the rules, they do not state any steps that you need to do before any crime, and there's no time limit or like restrictions on targets or anything like that. If you want to murder someone at minute 5, or I don't know, you want to get to a station bombing, if you can escalate, you can do it. Now, this is also just a reminder that sometimes it's fun if you want to, I don't know, maybe you want to slowly get a prank war going that escalates too far over like the course of a round, or maybe you want to slowly stalk a guy across a round and it gets weirder and weirder until eventually you catch him out in an alleyway and blow their brains out the side of their head. So this is just letting you know that it really is just whatever's more fun for you and whatever you feel like doing. This is just kind of letting you know, really. Just as long as you properly escalate it beforehand, if you really want to do a crime like that, just make sure you kind of give people some apt response to it. All right, so question 5. This one was weird because it was more a short answer, I guess, for those who are willing to do it. Now, some people didn't even. Yeah, so some people just said this wasn't really even possible, or that they wouldn't even bother trying. And that's not entirely unfair because sort of the problem here is, and with this poison trap or any trap really, you have to answer the question. Well, if I escalate it, no one's gonna walk into it. unless they like are willing to do it for my role play, and some people aren't willing to do that. So how do I do this? Now, a decent couple of people provided some good examples. So for this example of poison food, people said marketed as comically safe, or like I say, like put a signs up as a 100% not poison. Do not think this is poison. Or maybe build up this big centerpiece cake for like a command staff, so it's like a big party, and then he'll eat it, and then like he'll start dying, and everyone will start freaking out. Or you could like, I mean, obviously you could also just market it as like rat soup that makes you die, and that's nothing wrong with that. And that like kind of just like when someone asks like, "What is this?" Oh, it's rat soup that makes you die, and then they eat it and it makes them die, and that's pretty funny. And that's not a wrong way to do it at all. Special meals for rude customers. Like, oh, you want a special meal because you're a cool guy, huh? All right, I'll make you something unique, and then you give them the fucking poo poo stew, and they die instantly, and that was some fun consequence. This whole rant is to say, if you want to make a trap or something for someone to fall for, you can still give them something without completely spoiling the surprise. Like you don't have to go, oh ho ho, don't walk forward into my trap, wink wink. So you can't really completely do a trap without having to escalate it first. But this is to say, you have ways to make it work. So don't completely disregard the idea. All right, question 6 here. The big question here is sort of how to respond to someone. So I mean, if you remember the end of the escalation rule, it says that anyone wearing syndicate gear, or basically anyone touting their antag status, as it were, on their sleeve, you have a right to treat them harshly. Now, some people interpret this differently, and you can see by this pretty hefty even split here. People kind of have different interpretations on what that means. Admittedly, if you've been paying attention to how I talked about the rule, you'll know how I lean on it. But some people think, or some people will say, like, well, I mean, if you're wearing your antac status on your sleeve, you should expect people to fuck with you and like not have to deal with your bullshit, as it were. Like, obviously, I'm not gonna like talk to a damn terrorist, or I'm not gonna let the goddamn enthralling vampire into my bar. I'm gonna whip their ass. But the other split, of course, being like, well, hold on, like in this scenario specifically, like you didn't really give him a chance to do anything. I mean, that's still like, hey, that's like a player who needs to role play. Like, just because, like, I mean, I know they can be treated harshly, but that's a little bit too reductive. You don't even get them a chance to talk. Now, I'm just gonna throw this out there, like, because I already said it. Like, yes, you can treat them harshly, but you still should really, give them a chance to role play. Like, yeah, they're being brazen, and if they got you cornered, yeah, they're probably wanting to kill you or something. But still, you escalate, and yes, their gear does come with a sort of escalation weight. Like, your character is like, if you see them and like the first thing you say to them is, "I really don't want to talk to you," that's fair. No one's gonna blame you for that. But still, role play with them somehow. This game is about making fun role play opportunities, and if your response to their role play opportunity is die, 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 fuck you, die, die, that's to some not as interesting. So, question 8. I guess the big concern here is, so a few can come up, for one, the time, like it's a pretty early into the shift. A lot of people just like barely like getting started in the round. Another question, of course, kind of being, it's pretty fast paced. Like, like he's just saying, I am Dave, I'm gonna start murdering people. So that already may set off a few alarm bells for some people. Now, of course, the big mark here is one of course, but one of the ones I wanted to bring attention to is the fact that it's an announcement. It's big. Everyone on station now knows this. Now, the question being, does that make a proper escalation? Now, you'll notice a it's not a clear cut answer, but most people said yes. Like they like hey, listen, they gave a clear motive to the entire station. And if they want to do mass murder, then they're gonna let everyone know they're gonna do mass murder, so everyone has a chance to respond on the radio. Those who said no, as they felt it was some said it was a little too low effort for kind of that scale of crime, and some said that yeah, it was an announcement, but some could have also missed it. And it doesn't really allow too much. You can respond on the radio, but that's about the max you can do. And once they touch down on station, it kind of swaps to gamer mode. Now, saying radio and announcement, like those are ways you can escalate, especially for like larger scale stuff, because then because if you're gonna affect a lot of people, you can escalate and roleplay with a lot of people at once. Announcements are pretty effective for that. Most people don't miss those. And if you really want to, even like get a story going or something, that you could do a lot worse than doing a big fuck off announcement to the entire server. I'm going to do a thing now. Radio is a little bit tougher to, so like I guess specifically with like the syndicate radio, that one's hard to miss because like it's a distinct color that most people can catch. It's like that evil light red, that you see, and people are like, oh, syndicate time. Now that maybe if you, I wouldn't worry too much about it getting missed because obviously it's a radio, everyone sees it on the right side of their screen, but general announcement, if the server's too clogged up, I'd wager at least a few people are gonna miss it. I wouldn't let that deter you too much. But also do remember you still got to give people a chance to roleplay when you do this. This isn't like gonna say like okay, if you say I am going to blow up medbay in 5 seconds, that's not a lot of roleplay. So still give people a chance to respond to something, and maybe I don't know, get some sort of situation going where people are trying to stop you and people are like nervous and running around. That sort of thing. All right. So question 9 is a bit of a tough one for me to comment on. It's a bit of a heated conversation for some because changeling, at least in my eyes and in the eyes of some, sits weird in this sort of escalation scheme. And for those who aren't aware, which isn't many, it's because they're ling stings. So, for some context, a while back, I think like a year at this point, I could probably be wrong about that though. A changeling used to use capilletium, the chemical, to sting a victim for about like it would take a minute to really settle in. It would like make your screen white and make your character do little emotes. It wouldn't inhibit anything, and then you would float over and die. Pretend you'd fake die, but that was basically the changeling's excuse to pick you up and drink your brains out. Now people often. The tells are pretty obvious when you got changeling stung, and it often kind of left people in a weird scenario because if a changeling told you they stung you, you have an entire like minute to go, oh no, I gotta get the fuck out of here, and then run and get to a doctor and tell the security and all that. Or the changeling could say nothing and then suddenly your screen was white, and since your character didn't know nothing, you'd have to just go like, oh no, what is happening, when really like, well, I guess I just kind of have to die now, I don't really know what to say here. Now what's nice is after the change, they changed it from capilletium to neurotoxin. Now neurotoxin has a similar effect, but now it inhibits your movement as well. So once it starts setting in, you'll get confusion movement. So it gets a lot harder for you to run away. It's not impossible, but it is harder, which sort of alleviates this because neurotoxin poison's a lot more obvious. So once it hits, you could be more willing to go like, oh my god, you just fucking poisoned me, I gotta get the hell out of here. And then you try to run and then you'd fail. That being said, changeling still doesn't have a lot of ways to secure a kill beyond that, and you're not exactly screwed when you got neurotoxin, you're just impaired. So, with some clever play or, like some radio abuse, you're not completely down for the count. With that being said, changeling sits in a weird place for some, because some people still have trouble with escalating that and sort of being willing to let someone know that they've been stung because of the fact that there is that response time. Now, most people are aware of that. At least a decent few responses. They did say like the stings being the way they are did influence how they responded. But most people can kind of tell you that they're not that good for escalation. Now, whether or not it was proper, some people can still go, like, whether or not the stings are the way they are, people still have different disagreements on whether or not it's fair to basically stall until you're sure you're going to win. Because that's technically not escalation. You need to escalate before you do the crime. And if you only start escalating after you do the crime, then you're not really escalating. You're just sort of catching up your victim, as it were. Now, I don't know if I can exactly tell you what the right call is here in this scenario, and whether or not, if you give me admin status and a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you for sure. But I will say in general, I would personally, I would advise against, like, even, and this goes for any antag really. If you're worried that people are gonna like use your escalation as an excuse to fuck off and run really fast away and call security and all that, I recommend you be ready for that. I guess Changeling being an example, you could also just grab a weapon and just like, if they start sprinting, you start smashing them over the head with a fire extinguisher while they try to run. I kind of touched on that on question 2, but this sort of leads on to that. I know I'm kind of saying what I personally think because I can't tell you what is a right answer here. Changeling has been a bit of a problem child for some in terms of what feels fair, as it were. So this is going to be my little reminder that escalation's still vibe based. Just do what you think is right. And I know I've been trying to avoid giving that answer, but here, just do what you think's right. All right. Luckily, question 10 here's a pretty simple question and I think a pretty short response. You'll notice a lot of people kind of they said they usually do or they're not entirely sure. Like so much people says like whatever they feel like doing. It depends on the round and whatnot. I'll just let you know now. No rule on this. If you really want to like go on a mass murder spree, that's your right. Just be aware that people that if you really do want to go ham on Antag, chances are it's going to be easier, especially if there's not that much security. So whether or not that changes what you're going to do, that's really up to you. But now personally, I don't know if a lot of people would have more fun with that. I can't tell you that though. It's just whatever you think will be fun. So you do with that what you will. All right, so question 11 here. Another sort of short answer, like a little questionnaire on: do you feel like your group antags have a problem with different escalation paces all at once? Most people said yes, because at least a few times it's happened. Salvagers is usually the prime example of this. Actually, gangs and salvagers can be the prime example of this, where it's not too much coordination. A few gang members might be doing something else or having a bit when another gang member is just going out there and fucking whooping security ass, like fucking blowing the lids off and tagging shit and absolutely fucking busters not holding them back. And then those other gang members usually kind of get the same level of force that the crazy ass gang member is getting, because security can't exactly like parse like the whole like group objective. They just kind of know that like that crazy dude's running with those other dudes, so chances are like we gotta bag them all, and that may unfortunately lead to what could have been a cool bit for somebody kind of getting squandered. Now, that isn't to say anyone's in the wrong, but I will say that so if you feel like someone is like ignoring you and escalating far out, I would personally help that, because like if you're in a group antag and you want to do your own thing, turn it off next time. Because you're in a group, it's more fun to do something with that group, and especially if you're like in a leader role, now obviously like this isn't exactly a mill RP, like like I'm not saying like you have complete and utter control over what they do, but still I like try to stay as a like it's more fun to stay as a team, and so like everyone's on the same page doing the same bit, and then the RP can kind of flow more naturally. That's the only real advice I can give is on the anti side, because security side I admit I don't personally have the best advice for that. I guess just maybe keep it in mind of like sort of the individual differences when you're dealing with the gangs, but I don't really want to say too much without actually knowing what I'm talking about. So maybe in time, or if you have any answers to that question in the comments, please do feel free. I didn't put any question for this or anything, or really have any good segue into this. But I'll also just remember to escalate with and yeah, this is for both silicons and players. Y'all gotta escalate with each other too. I know silicons are big and scary. They can plasma can your entire room in a millisecond, and they don't breathe. And you try to hit them with your fist, and they just hurt your fist. But you're both players, and yeah, that's for the rogue AIs too. Yeah, I know. I see you. The fucking traitor just blew up your law rack, and you're eyeballing that plasma can. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I get that. Remember, you're all players escalate. Silicon's crew too, which means you escalate. Remember to bring your escalation before you go out to school, sweetheart. I've been doing a lot of yapping, and yeah, I'll admit I didn't really want to script out all of this. It's been a tough time for me, so I don't really feel like scripting everything I've been doing. But I promise you, I did my research, and I want everyone watching this to have an easier time escalating. So, the bottom line up front, the big takeaway from this, uh, there's never really going to be a perfect, clear answer to escalation. Um, what it looks like kind of changes from situation to situation, but as long as everyone involved is getting to be part of some story, be it a short one or a long one that goes for 5 minutes or one that goes for the whole round. And as long as everyone gets to do some role play and make their little funny characters dance around, that's all anyone can really ask for. Just remember to help if you ever have any questions. And don't be afraid to try something out or to put yourself out there for a fun bit. This is a video game, and there's always going to be a next round. So yeah, gaming.